is back. The Drool King Lotor has returned with a dark energy that can destroy the galaxy. Our only hope? The Voltron Force, a team of 5 heroic pilots that control 5 awesome robot lions. When Lotor's monstrous road beasts attack, the lions come together to form Voltron, defender of the universe.
Oh, let's Voltron! Oh, let's Voltron! Oh, let's Voltron!
Welcome, Voltron fans. This is Mark Morell, your host for Let's Voltron, the official Voltron podcast. And we're here for another episode review for the 10th anniversary of Voltron Force. And we're looking at episode 4, Coran. I have to bring my co-host on, Greg Tyler. So welcome, Greg.
Hey, Mark, it's great to be back with you and with our listeners and viewers since we're still on YouTube with our YouTube broadcasts of the podcast, as well as on letsvoltron.com and everywhere that your favorite podcasts can be found. It's great to be with you to talk about the first regular length episode of Voltron Force, Coran.
Coran, and not the gorgeous man.
Can you do the Coran voice?
No, I can't.
Me neither.
No.
I'm not even going to try.
Nope, and I can't do this Coran's voice either.
Yeah, he's a unique one, and that's they've all been unique from show to show, haven't they?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, pretty much the Coran from the original series, the Coran from Voltron Force and from the Third Dimension, and Coran from Voltron Legendary Defender, all different.
Yes, very much so. And their appearance, their personality. I mean, there's some constant. Well, Legendary Defender really threw a wrench into the traditional Coran, but each one has been unique in his own way. So yeah. Anyway, what's new with you? Anything new and exciting in the Voltron world?
So obviously, you know, we had just had a really good Super 7 release with the reaction figure, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so now there's a new, what they call Voltron Ultimates Super 7.
Yes. Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, it's a 6-inch figure. It is a redeco of their, I forget what the original release was called, but Super 7 had a 6-inch release where it was made of all plastic, highly articulated, came with the sword and the shield, and each of the arm lions had 2 different heads, 2 hands, so you could swap them to have the open mouths or the closed mouths, and that one looks really cool. This one is a toy deco, so it's got the same mold as the previous release, but it has kind of a metal flake, metallic kind of a finish to it. And it's very inspired by the Matchbox toys from the 80s with the numbers on the lions and the blue face with the red above the nose. It's really cool.
Yeah. So I'd like to say that this was sooner than expected, according to most people, right?
Yeah, it was supposed to come out later this year, but a number of online retailers, such as the Voltron store, got them in a lot earlier than they planned. A couple other new things going on, 3 new things going on in the Voltron store.
Mm-hmm.
The Bandai Soul of Chogokin GX71, that's the 3rd issue of this mold, has already sold out. The pre-order has sold out.
Yeah.
So this is the first time the Voltron store has offered Bandai Soul of Chogokin, which is really cool.
Yes.
You can pre-order the 2nd issue of GX88, that's Vehicle Voltron.
Yes.
But the 71 3rd issue is pre-order sold out already.
That amazes me. This GX71, Bandai could just keep releasing it and releasing it and releasing it. They'd never stop selling out.
Yeah, so it makes me wonder what's holding them back from releasing, say, double or triple or quadruple what they're doing these days.
I don't know.
Like within 24 hours, these major online retailers and the Voltron store, they're all selling out.
And they're like $350 each.
Yeah, it's not like you're getting, it's not like the reaction figure, which is about $20. This is
right.
a lot of money. But that's great for Voltron fans. That's out. So I just mentioned the 3rd issue of the GX71, the 2nd issue of the GX88 Vehicle Voltron, and there are you can now order Lion skateboards.
Yep.
From Finesse. They're very nice, very brightly colored. They have the the shot, each one is colored like a lion and has the lion artwork on it where the lion is seated, and it looks really cool. So there's a full set that you can get for looks like 225. It's very nice. They look
Yeah.
really nice.
So you get all 5 lions for 225. That's not bad.
Yeah, it's less than the Soul Shogoken. Now they don't combine. But yeah, they're pretty cool.
Yeah. So another cool thing happened just
what's
recently. We had a brand new Voltron Legendary Defender license that got sort of reactivated through an app.
Yes, the what was that called again?
So it's Funko Pop Blitz.
That's right. Okay.
Right. So Funko Pop, of course, we had the figures with Voltron, and we had Hunk and Pidge and Keith and Lance and Shiro. And of course, there was the special Shiro that had the pink hand that came from Hot Topic. And then, of course, they did Funko versions of all those. And of course, they also did Allura. But Funko Pop Blitz did not include Allura in this. So
no birthday, no Blitz.
Yeah. So they have special events, and they release these events on like a Wednesday. And what happens is you have like 5 days to try to collect as many of these pops in the collection that you can by playing the game. And the game is like a Bejeweled game. You know, you have to match 3 up and down, or 4 or 5, you know, combinations of things get you different, you know, rewards and stuff like that, or other types of things that will blow things up or spread things out, you know. And you go through these boards, and you have a certain amount of time, like a minute, right, to get through this board and get as many points as you can during that time. And during these events where they have these collections that you have to try to get all these different pop figures. And of course, when I say these pop figures, these are virtual pop figures in the game. These aren't real pop figures.
Okay.
So when you've gone through and you have to get through 25 different levels.
That's a lot of levels.
And as you get near the last few levels, that's when you open up the exclusive pop, which in this case is Shiro.
Nice.
And then also there are ways to earn Voltron. There's like 3 different ways to earn Voltron as well. Like if you get all 5 of the other figures, you get Voltron. Or if you've gone through all the 25 levels, you'll get Voltron. So it's a fun game, and it was really cool because they have animations and stuff like that in the game for each figure. So each figure does something, like Shiro, you know, slashes with his hand, you know.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden a bunch of things pop up in the Shiro, and then they combine, and then they enable you to get other things. Keith has his sword. Lance has his gun. Hunk has, you know, his food.
He has food. That's his weapon.
That's his thing. He sprinkles a little bit of that stuff like he did at Sal's, right?
Yeah.
At Sal's.
Okay.
And all of a sudden, you know, a whole bunch of the figures on the board light up. So, and then Pidge has the Bayard. So it was really cool. I mean, it was fun to play it for a week, and to come with these figures that were coming from Funko, but for Voltron Legendary Defender, because we haven't had any Voltron Legendary Defender licensed stuff for quite a while.
Yeah, well, that's really cool. Now, you've got some screen caps.
I'm gonna share those, of course. You know, we've got all kinds of stuff, but I took screenshots of the game, and I'm gonna share them as we go along here.
That's great. And so for those listening to the podcast, you know, the YouTube channel has a video component. So if you actually want to see us talking about this great stuff, then check us out on YouTube. So
you see the struggle that I went through, because I am unwilling to pay for things on free games, right? You know, they have those in-app purchases where you can buy coins and stuff like that. And if you, of course, you bought a whole bunch of coins, it would make it easier to obtain these things.
Right.
But you can also do it the free way, which is what I prefer.
Yeah.
Because I really don't want to fork out any money for these. So
right.
in playing the game, it takes a long time to get up to the 6,000 required coins that you needed in order to be able to buy one of the pops from the collection. And the collection doesn't include just the 6 figures from Voltron. It includes a whole bunch of other ones from other collections. And at various points, you're trying for a random pop figure.
Oh my.
Yeah, so it took me a while after, because if you get to the 8th purchase of the 6,000 coins, then you automatically get Keith. Okay.
Okay.
So in trying, you get Pidge first, then I got Lance, then I got Keith,
Okay.
then I got Shiro, and then I got Voltron, and then I had to go back and get Hunk.
Oh my.
And it took a while to get Hunk, but I got lucky.
And who were some of the non-Voltron characters that you picked up along the way?
So they have characters from things like Parks and Recreation. They have things from Jaws. They have things from like the cereal figures, like the Trix Rabbit or the honeybee from Honey Nut Cheerios and things like that. They had some of the Universal monsters. They've had other things from other shows like The Office and things like that. So they've got all these different collections from all these different things. Oh, and they also had DreamWorks Trolls and How to Train Your Dragon and, just a whole bunch of things.
Oh, that's neat.
Yeah.
When you mentioned the serial characters, I don't know if you've ever watched the Red Letter Media YouTube channel, where they one of their video series is called The Nerd Crew, and they were making fun of the plethora of online streaming content services now. And they made up General Mills, the cereal company, is going to have a new service called G Plus. Original shows about your favorite cereal characters.
Wow.
But anyway, yeah, fun stuff.
So I was having fun playing the game, but I can see after a while you could get tired of playing that game.
Yeah.
So it was good to play with Voltron for a week. And of course, we also want to mention, of course, that VoltCon is coming later this year, VoltCon 2021.
That's right,
So,
the third event, the third
yes,
occurrence of
the
VoltCon,
third year
right?
of VoltCon.
That's awesome.
So we're looking forward to VoltCon in Indianapolis in October. And of course, there will be other things coming up on this podcast as the year goes on, where we'll be talking about VoltCon things. Of course, you and I are going to be working on some VoltCon, panels while we're there.
Right. That's right. We've been announced as guests already, which is cool.
Yes.
And check out the VoltCon website, VoltCon, VoltCon.org for more information.
Yes. So
All
thank
right.
you for that.
Yeah.
All right.
So before we jump in very quickly, I want to give a shout out again to World Events Productions for sharing the scripts of Voltron Force, which makes our job a lot easier. So thank you, Wep. So let's go ahead and get started. This is Voltron Force, the episode Coran. It's episode 4, production number 104. It first aired June 23rd, 2011. The director, with all the episodes, was John Delaney. The story was by Todd Garfield and Brandon Sawyer, and it was written by Brandon Sawyer. And this is the first regular length episode of Voltron Force. The first 3 had originally aired as a bundled feature length premiere called the New Defenders Trilogy.
Yep.
And as you already said, we don't want to confuse Coran with Coran, the Gorgeous Man. So let's get the show on the road. So we start out with the teaser, the part that appears before the main titles. And we open in the control room of the Castle of Lions. And Pidge tells the Voltron Force pilots and cadets that he and Hunk have upgraded the Lions' tail weapons by tapping into the Voltcom powers of the original Voltron Force pilots. And Daniel speaks up and says, well, what about us? And Pidge says, well, we haven't tested these yet, and we're focusing only on the original Lion Force. So one thing that's kind of fun here is Lance's attitude about these weapons. What did he say?
He says he's ready to test it now.
Yeah, and it gets a little bit of a look from Keith, and this is not the last time Keith will give Lance a look in this episode.
Right.
So, and it's interesting to point out, if you're following the arc of the season, that the one cadet who speaks up in disappointment is Daniel.
Yeah.
He's a very eager beaver. So yeah.
He wants to do everything that the older Voltron Force pilots have done.
That's right. Yeah. Hey, I don't want training wheels. I want to ride on 2 wheels right now.
Right.
So each lion's tail weapon, as I mentioned, taps into the Voltcom powers of its pilot. So Black Lion, with Keith, of course, has what Pidge calls the tail shock, and what's later called the taser tail. And in later episodes, they call it shock tail for some reason.
Shock or taser, it's the same thing. Okay.
That's right. That's right. Pay no attention to the term behind the curtain there. Blue Lion gets a freeze ray. Yellow Lion gets a demolition tail. Red gets a precision laser. And Green Lion gets boomer blades, called boomerang blades in the script, which is kind of fun.
Right.
So what I thought was kind of interesting is that the tails actually don't look any different than they did in the prior episodes when they hadn't been upgraded. And the shapes of the tails actually look like they are tied into what their powers are. So I guess it was just dumb luck that the tails already looked like they needed to look.
Yeah.
But right after the intro of these tail weapons, the Castle of Lions sensors sound an alarm, and Pidge notices that there's an incoming Galaxy Alliance fractal fighter. And Pidge, thinking this is another attack from Wade, who had attacked Eris in the previous episodes, he flips on the castle's defenses, and they fire at and hit the fractal. And almost immediately after that, they get a distress call. And who's it from?
It's from Coran.
The gorgeous man, or the Mark Twain man.
Right. And I do want to point out here that, normally the Galaxy Alliance and everything is on the same side as Voltron. Okay.
Right.
But
Right.
because what these guys did, and they sort of went against Wade, now that when they see a fractal fighter, they're thinking, okay, this is Wade, so it's not friendly.
Coran, over the radio or whatever, says something about Wade, stop, and then the fractal smashes into the side of the Castle of Lions and then lands. And that's the end. At the end there, we cut to black and main title time.
Right.
So that's the teaser. And one thing I wanted to point out is when Pidge gives the intro to the Lion's new tail weapons, we see these 360 degree computer diagrams. And it's almost like the lion is standing on a lazy Susan. And
it's those lazy Karens you got to watch out for.
Or lazy Korans? I don't know. Anyway, Coran the lazy man. But the reason why I pointed that out is that the 360 the shots look really smooth, and that's because the lions in the show are done using 3D graphic elements rather than traditional cell animation, which is what's used with the characters on the show. So it's one of those deals where you can really see the 3D pop in the series. And so anyway, I did want to touch on one other thing, and that's in this teaser, you see Pidge doing a whole lot of in the air manipulation of the holographic displays and buttons and all that stuff. And not too many years, maybe a decade before Voltron Force, was the science fiction movie called Minority Report, which had a lot of that kind of stuff going on.
Yeah.
But even at this point, we already had touch screens by this point. The iPod Touch and iPhone had been available as early as 2007, 4 years before, and then the iPad came along in 2010. So we were beginning to hit sci-fi at about this time.
Right.
It's just that these graphics are floating in the air, which is kind of cool.
We still can't do what Tony Stark can do in the Avengers,
Talk to his suit.
Well, I mean, he can actually manipulate his holograms with his hands, and he can put his hands into things in the hologram and then look at it and use it.
That is amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing stuff. We're really close to that in a lot of ways in the real world,
Right.
and haptic feedback and VR and augmented reality.
Oh
Amazing stuff.
yeah.
Yeah, blows the mind. So we're now out of the main titles and jumping into Act One. So now we're outside the Castle of Lions, and Keith, Lance, and Allura are helping Coran. It seems like they're helping him up. He's leaning against the side of the castle, while the rest of the team is trying to put out fires on the fractal, which is crashed nearby.
Mm-hmm.
And Keith wants to take Coran to medical, and Coran insists on me taken to the control room. He wants to be debriefed and tell them what he knows about Wade. Um, and so this once again, it shows that the ship in this shot, the fractal, is 3D, and everything else, including the fire that's been comped over the ship, is 2D, which is really kind of cool.
Right.
Yeah, and one of the things Keith mentions is what about the fractal? He calls it
He says that they're pretty sturdy and they make pretty sturdy ships, but they're trying to explain how Coran could be in as good a shape as he was, despite the fact that the ship's on fire.
Yeah. Of course, back in the old days, before cars crumpled when you sneezed on them, uh, and they really were sturdy, they could beat up the occupants pretty badly in an accident.
It reminds me of what happens to a NASCAR driver after a really nasty crash, and
Yeah.
they somehow come out of it okay. And it's because, the main parts of the car are, tight and steel,
That's true. That's true. And safety harnesses are a good thing too.
Right.
Which is interesting. They don't even wear helmets when they fly the Lions in the show, but oh well.
Nope.
Yeah, so now we're in the control room of the Castle of Lions, and Coran is sitting in one of those magical floating holographic chairs, and he tells the Force that Wade's not only survived the Robeast attack back in the previous episode, where the spider Robeast was piercing the lion that he was controlling,
Right.
but now he controls the entire Galaxy Alliance, which he kind of did in the previous episode anyway.
Yeah.
And now he's preparing his next assault. He said, Coran says Wade's army is small, but to keep it that way, the Force has to go to Tarvos. That's the moon of Saturn that Keith was in back in the first episode. And they have to go to Wade's secret base and destroy it. Otherwise, he might build a force that Voltron can't stop. And then Daniel's got a fun
I'd
reaction.
like to see that. No, we don't want to see that.
No. I just thought it was funny. It's like, yeah, I want to see something stop Voltron. And then he says, and then he says, what does he say? He reacts and says, or I wouldn't, which is why we should, stop it.
Uh-huh.
And then so Lance wants to bring the cadets along on this mission, and what's interesting is he basically implies that Wade is small potatoes compared to Lotor, and says, Lotor is the big threat, so let's give the cadets a soft mission to get them up to speed. Well, they seemed almost equally bad in the previous episodes.
Right.
But
all we have to do is to destroy this moon base. Shouldn't be a problem.
What could go wrong?
Right.
Because all the ships that attacked in the previous episode came from Tarvos, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Keith isn't too fond of the idea. Pidge says, we haven't worked as a fivesome in a long time. Why don't we shake the rust off? And then Keith says, the cadets are going to stay put. And then he and Lance have a bit of a spat.
It's talking about teamwork, and basically Lance is saying, that's something you haven't worked on in a while.
Yeah, and they both kind of rile each other up, and Lance has a point, because even in the previous episodes, Keith said something directly to Allura. He goes, "I've been working alone for a long time," so trying to sound like this stoic tough guy.
Right.
So yeah, there's some weight there. And then Allura breaks up the row and says they're acting like teenage boys.
Uh-huh.
And it is funny that she's talking about them acting like teenage boys in a room that has two teenage boys in it, Daniel and Vince.
Right.
But so Daniel, he gets this look in his eye like, oh, well, the cats are away, we get to play, saying he's looking forward to some cadet only time. And then Lance says, nah, we're going to leave Coran in charge.
Mm-hmm.
And Coran says he's already feeling much better.
Oh, wow. That's quick.
Yes, very quick. That is, I mean, he's an older guy. He just crash landed.
Right.
And,
Already feeling better.
yeah, he never went to medical, which,
Nope.
yeah, so medical, what is medical? Are there any doctors in the castle?
It's the planet Ebb in a previous series, but in this one, they have medical right in the castle.
Yeah, so do they have a staff?
Yeah, we haven't seen them.
Yeah, maybe it's the space mice. So now we're on Tarvos. Gosh, that was fast. And
That was really quick.
it was. And so the lions arrive over Tarvos, and the planet looks barren. There are signs of a base, but there's nothing going on.
If they really want to shake off the rust, let's just form Voltron right away. Why not? Right?
Yeah, something like, yeah, there's no reason to be subtle. Let's do it.
Yep.
And so, yeah, they combine and they start attacking a mound that's got a base tower in it, and then other parts of the base start to spring to life. And they're firing lasers and missiles at Voltron, and it's kind of funny. Keith really is kind of he is a fairly stoic person on this show, and very rarely do you see his fun side. But the rest of the team is going, oh no, I thought this place was abandoned, it's got a defense system. Keith smiles in response, which is really fun, and says, so it's got defenses, we'll just need a stronger offense.
Yep.
And they form
Blazing Sword.
Hey! Complete with the Green Lion roar at the end.
I do like the sound effect that they use in Voltron Force for forming Blazing Sword.
Yeah, it feels like Voltron is literally pulling the sword out of the ether.
Or like a sheath, pulling a sword out of a sheath.
Yeah, it's like there's this pocket in subspace or something.
Yeah.
I'm starting to sound like a Star Trek guy. I am. But yeah, it's fun. So yeah, they're slashing up stuff. And in the meantime, back at the Castle of Lions, Daniel and Vince are in the dorm room. And Vince is tinkering away at his Voltcom, which is disassembled on his desk. This Voltcom has never worked for him. He got it in the previous episodes, and he's trying to figure out what's going on. And Daniel is lying in his bunk. I guess he's got the top bunk. And he's talking about wanting a private place for the cadets because he's worried about Coran getting into all their business. And so he wants a secret HQ, and he has a couple ideas for what to call it. Do you remember what he said about that?
The cave. No, better. The lair.
And so Vince is looking at his Voltcom, and then all of a sudden it sort of, even though it's still on the desk, it sort of flashes to life, and you hear a voice that says,
only you can save them.
Only you can prevent forest fires. Yeah, and so it's very interesting, and his eyes sort of glow and fizzle a little bit. There's something going on there.
And that's something only Vince can hear.
Yes, Daniel is in his own little world, and he's drawing pictures anyway. And he winds up drawing a logo for the lair, which isn't bad for someone who was drawing glasses on Pidge's glasses in the previous story.
And he's doing this all freehand, and he did it pretty quick.
Yes, I was impressed. So he tries to show this logo for the lair to Vince, and Vince is sort of in his own little, almost like he's in a trance. He's walking out the door into the hallway. Yeah, and so I did notice something interesting when reviewing this episode. In the wide shot of the dorm room, on screen left, there's what looks kind of like a cubby or a locker area, and there's a brown stick that looks like it might be a baseball bat. And then there are there's a pair of red and white, what look like sneakers, right on the very edge of the screen. And they remind me a little bit of those shoes that Keith wore in Voltron Legendary Defender. Yeah, so in the next scene, we're out in the corridor outside the dorm, and Daniel runs out of the dorm to try to catch up to Vince. He bumps into Vince, falls back on the floor, and Vince smashes into an immovable object named Coran.
Yeah, how is he so immovable? I would have thought he would have fallen over too.
Yeah, he might have broken a hip or something, but no, he didn't even break his stride.
That was a big bounce right off of him.
Yeah, I mean, it almost sounded like he was hitting a wall.
Yeah.
So after the fall, Vince apologizes to Coran, and Coran smiles and says something like, "It's all right, but perhaps you boys should confine your rough and tumble games to your own room. I've had enough injuries for one day." He doesn't seem very injured though.
No, no, he
Yeah,
seems fine.
yeah. So then Daniel tells Vince about the lair, and Vince immediately buys into it because it sounds like he's got some secrets he needs to work out himself. This voice in his Voltcom is kind of perplexing. And all of a sudden, they talk about Larmina. Wouldn't it be great if she were along? And then she speaks up, and she's where?
She's hanging on the ceiling, just hanging, just stealthily hanging like a ninja.
Yeah. So yeah, she talks about using her stealthy stalking skills. Now, how far away are they from the dorm room, from Daniel and Vince's room? Maybe 20 feet. I'm guessing. I'm
About
guessing.
that, yeah.
Yeah. So who was she hoping to spy on?
I don't know. And why does she feel the need to spy on them?
Hmm.
Because there's nobody else in the castle, really. That's why.
Yeah. Medical. But no one went there.
Who else is she going to hang out with?
Yeah, that's a good point. Do we ever see her dorm room or whatever? Does she
I don't
have a
think so.
dorm? She probably lives in the castle in some fancy room
Yeah,
with a bunch of
We're still trying to figure out who her parents are.
what did they call them? Aldous in the book, the 30th anniversary book,
Right.
her father. Anyway, yeah. So all right. So moving on, we're now back to Tarvos, and Voltron is continuing to hack up the base with his sword. And all of a sudden, Pidge notices on his sensor in the Green Lion that the moon's core is collapsing, and that the moon should destroy itself if they simply leave it alone.
And at this point, they really don't care. They were coming there to destroy it, so why not? Who cares if a moon just implodes on itself?
Yeah, although there is a difference between destroying a moon base,
right,
and
the whole freaking moon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So anyway, yeah, I guess you could argue that
Whoops.
it's a good thing Voltron had its sword. Yeah, it's a good thing Voltron had its sword, because otherwise you could accuse the robot of shooting the moon. Sorry, that was bad. But so suddenly Wade calls the Voltron Force, and he shows them. He says, basically, you don't want to leave now because I have your friend, and it's Coran.
Yeah, what's he doing there? I thought he was over at the castle. How is he there and at the castle at the same time? How could that be?
It's just like a Schrodinger's cat thing, alive and dead at the same time. Who knows? Wade makes some comment here. What is this? Keith has this brilliant conclusion. Wade, this was a setup from the beginning. You were never coming back to this base. You wanted us here. And Wade says, so the great Commander Keith's sharp military wit is just figuring that out now? You'll have to be quicker than that if you don't want Coran's demise on your hands. Right. Which was a different word in the script, wasn't it?
It was death.
Ooh.
Death.
Yeah. Death. And this is a TV Y7 show.
Y7, yeah. We don't want to use the word death in Y7.
Yeah. Do you remember in the end of the 80s cartoons like G.I. Joe and Transformers and He-Man, where they'd say something like, you guys will meet your doom.
Right.
Right before the maniacal laugh.
Yeah.
I guess that's this show's version.
We're going to get rid of him. Yeah. That's what we're going to do. We're going to get rid of him.
Yeah. We'll put him in that closet over there. And we won't tell him we didn't lock the door.
We'll put him out of his misery.
Yes. Whatever that means to a young kid.
We're not going to say kill or death. We're just not going to say those words.
Yeah. That would be bad, because everything else is fine, but kill and death, not good. Yeah. So, yeah. And the team decides they're going to split into the Lions and search for Coran inside the base, even though they know it's almost certainly a trap. So back to the Castle of Lions. This is the last scene of Act 1 before the commercial break. And in the catacombs, Larmina is running as fast as she can. She knows where she's at. She's in her element. and she's way ahead of Daniel and Vince. They're trying to follow her, and they're having trouble keeping up. Well, all of a sudden, Larmina smashes into an immovable object named Coran.
Yep. Again,
weird.
And another bouncing off a Coran moment.
Yeah. And I guess he's had more than enough injuries for one day, although again, he doesn't look injured.
Even if it was one of the Voltron Force pilots, they wouldn't have had that happen either. You know, if it was Hunk, he would have still fallen back a little bit. You know what I mean?
Right. It's a physics thing, you know.
There's no possible way this guy could withstand both of those hits like that and not move.
Right. And I have to correct myself, not action reaction. It's the law of conservation of momentum. Sorry, physics nerd. But anyway, yeah, you're totally right.
You're all kinds of nerds today.
That's right. I have not yet begun to nerd. But yeah, so Coran, his reaction is he's got this very cold look on his face. He doesn't have that kind Coran look that he had the previous time when Daniel smashed it, or Daniel, when Vince collided with him. He says, "You shouldn't be down here. It isn't safe." And the camera, we zoom in on Coran's, one of his eyes, and it's got this weird circuitry light effect going on there. And then bam, commercial.
Yep.
So we're back from the ads for cereal and whatever else, and Funko Pop Blitz. And Act 2, we're back in the catacombs, picking up where we left off. Coran once again looking like he's not the kind soul that he normally is. So he tells the cadets they have no business in the catacombs, and Daniel wonders why. And what is he doing down there? And Larmina's not too happy with the response, with Daniel's reaction.
Yeah, show him some respect. He's earned the respect, and so because we haven't really established what position Coran holds in the castle in Voltron Force yet. Right. And I think you had mentioned this before, that it would have been really nice at the beginning of this episode if we saw Coran in his normal, how he runs as the royal advisor for the castle.
Right. And to a new viewer, we have no idea he's a royal advisor yet, right?
Right. So you don't know what position he holds in the castle yet because you haven't seen him doing it.
Right. I think I would have assumed from just the previous episodes that he was kind of an ambassador or a senator or something, because you see him talking with Wade and all these other representatives. And then, of course, he gets kidnapped. It's interesting that he's been kidnapped twice in 2 stories. But anyway, he's 0 for 2, isn't he?
and my point here is I'm going to get to this in a little bit, but it would have been nice if maybe we shown a flashback of what he normally does in the castle, so that Vince and Daniel haven't really seen him in that capacity yet.
Yeah, and frankly, would they have even known who he was had he not been? They would have introduced him, I'm sure.
Sure.
If he had landed normally or come back the normal route or whatever. But as far as we know, Daniel and Vince didn't even know. They had no clue who he was until they said Coran when he got on the communication, the distress call. So yeah, it is kind of weird. Daniel, he basically says, "No, I'm not trying to be rude here, but a couple of hours ago you were so weak you couldn't even stay conscious flying your ship. And now you're just strolling the catacombs. Oh, and by the way, we bumped into you twice and you didn't budge." He doesn't say that.
He doesn't say that.
But Vince begins to, question what's going on too. And then Coran, he says something about, of course, there's a very simple explanation. And then he goes crazy. Like, really crazy.
He kicks all 3 of them all at once.
Yeah. Not bad for an old injured guy.
Right.
So, and then to make matters worse, a sword pops out of his arm. And then, Larmina, at this point, she's beginning to realize, I don't think this is the Coran we're looking for. And she does something that in a kid's cartoon would never happen to a real person. She forms her Voltcom staff and hits him hard in the face, and skin peels off to reveal
He's a robot.
Yeah. Dun dun dun. That's right. So, and what's very interesting here is that if Daniel is right, if he knows how to tell time, and it really has been only a couple hours, my goodness, those lions flew from Eris to the Earth system really quickly, didn't they?
Yeah.
But yeah. So, and what's also interesting is that right after, Coran's robotic face is revealed here, he says, Larmina, darling, is that any way to speak to your dearest royal advisor? So we learned that he's a royal advisor through an imposter while
Right.
they're fighting him.
Exactly.
Uh,
He seems to know everything about who being Coran is. And he sounds just like him.
right.
So
So there
where
you go.
that all got programmed, I have no idea.
Yeah, good question. So the Coran he's firing, and so the act ends, or the scene ends when the Coran robot fires an energy blast from his hand, and it hits Vince, and he falls to the ground with a groan.
Right.
Right, and so meanwhile, Allura is trying to contact the cadets on Eris because now that they've seen Coran, they want to warn him about Coran.
Yeah.
So then Wade gets back on the radio and he taunts the Voltron Force, and then he turns on a bunch of death traps. Quite a few death traps.
Yeah.
Yeah, so what do we got going on there? Do we had these?
There's like lasers shooting at them. There's fire. There's like saw blades coming out of the floor. There's all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome. And very death trappy. It does make you wonder what these did he outfit these corridors specifically to take out the lions, or were they, I don't know.
I think he did.
Yeah,
I think it was all meant to be a trap.
Yeah. So anyway, the pilots do get separated. Black, green, and yellow stay together, but the red and blue lions get taken away. And what's kind of interesting is that when Allura and Blue Lion gets taken away from the team, the script says when Keith reacts, this is exposition right before he yells Allura. The exposition in the script says, "Anguish, this is more than professional concern." So if you're a Keith Allura fan from days of long ago, there you go.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I did notice that among the weapon or the things going on in the death traps, the tentacles that pull away the green and yellow lions, those are 2D animated over the 3D lions. And it looks really good. I like to look at the visuals there, and I can see why it would have been easier to animate 2D tentacles around a 3D lion, just because trying to keep all those 3D things wrapped around while the lion is moving would have been really hard to do. So in the next scene, we go back to the Castle of Lions in the catacombs. Vince, he recovers from getting blasted by the Robo Coran, as it's called in the script, and he finds Daniel and Larmina are still fighting the robot.
Well, Daniel is thinking that why would somebody send this thing to kill us, right?
Right.
And it's Larmina's idea is that it's not really after us. We just sort of in the way of its true mission.
Yeah. What's kind of interesting is that as Robo Coran is doing all these crazy battle moves, there's a shot where he backflips, jumps up in the air, does the splits in midair, and his feet telescope outward like Mayhawks' legs do.
Right.
And they kind of fix to the walls, and he's suspended in the air, and he continues to fight. And I had to go back and look at it frame by frame, because I literally thought his pants extended along with his legs.
It was like a Robo Jean-Claude Van Damme move.
Yes, where he's what do they do? Those videos online where is he like suspended from two aircraft or something, and he does the splits?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I've seen people do that with two chairs, right? their legs
Ugh.
are on two chairs and their midsection actually droops lower than the chairs.
Oh,
Ouch.
yeah, that's painful to think about. But not for a robot.
No.
Yeah, so it turns out his legs do not, his trousers do not extend. But the telescoping parts of his legs are just about the same color. And also I noticed that when Coran fires those energy blasts from his hands, they sound a lot like the phasers, again, Star Trek nerd, from Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan.
Wow.
When Yeah, like when Captain Terrell and Chekhov, they're using their phasers against those eels that crawl in their ears and all that.
Mhm.
The phaser blast, just I heard it during the rewatching of the episode. I thought that's got to be Star Trek too. But anyway,
They could
so
have just pulled it from stock phaser sounds. You know what I mean?
yes, yeah, no doubt, good call. So anyway, the robot's doing its thing, and Vince notices that very conveniently, there's a patch of skin missing on the back of the robot's head.
Very conveniently.
Very conveniently, and he pulls out very conveniently a what looks kind of like a bracelet, like a
Mhm.
C, like one of those C-shaped ones, and
Right.
it's got a computer screen on it. He pulls it out from wherever, puts it on his arm, and then extends from that a little connector with a retracting cord. It's like a lanyard for your badge.
And
You know,
it
your
magically fits perfectly in the back of the Coran robot's head.
yeah. While the robot is distracted, he grabs the robot from behind, plugs the thingamajig into the robot. Less than a second later, the
Mhm.
robot knocks him off.
Yep.
Vince looks at the screen of his little wrist gizmo and realizes that the thing has a bomb.
If it was us, we'd still be waiting. It would be saying connecting, connecting, connecting.
Ian Malcolm in Independence Day could learn a lot from Vince. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
he used that Mac to disable the UFO.
Right.
Yeah.
With a virus.
Yeah, he figures out that if the robot finds the right spot in the catacombs and then detonates the bomb, it could bring down the entire Castle of Lions.
Right. The important thing is that they realized what its true mission was. It was probably to destroy the castle.
The robot confirms that's exactly right. And what's kind of funny is he says, "You heard the boy. Kaboom."
Yeah. And he's got more of a robotic voice at this point, by the way, because she knocked his face off.
Yeah.
But she didn't knock his voice box off.
Right.
I don't know why
That's
his voice is affected at this point, but it is.
That's a good point. Yeah, I hadn't caught that. And then he kicks Daniel and Larmina away, turns toward a wall, and smashes through it. Bam! That wall of stone blocks gone like paper. And so then Daniel and Larmina start to chase after him, and Vince begins to follow, but then he hears a voice, and it says,
"Only you can save them."
Oh, you did that so well. And Vince's eyes do the full-on glow. This is serious glowage now. And he starts to walk in the other way. So he veers off from everybody else. So back to Wade. And here is where Blue Lion is. Where is Blue Lion?
So Blue Lion is in like a sort of like a tunnel.
Mm-hmm.
And it's, being pulled backwards towards fire.
Mm-hmm.
So, obviously Allura doesn't want to have Blue Lion get all burned up and everything. So in order to get out, she just starts smashing into the floor and knocks a hole in the floor and just is able to get out that way.
Yeah. And that's it for that scene.
Right. I mean, I wish it would have lasted a little bit longer so that there was a little bit more suspense, but she quickly got out of there.
So I just thought of something that I should have thought of earlier. Why didn't she just spray water on the fire?
I don't know. She has that.
Yeah. Blue Lion's kind of a water thing.
And a freeze ray.
Yeah.
Tail.
Which they do use later.
Right. So fire shouldn't be a concern to Blue Lion.
Yeah. Oh well. So now we're in another environment right outside of this incinerator. We're in a dark passage, and this is actually kind of creepy. The blue lion's in a dark passage, and we see this pair of eyes, red eyes, and it looks like a, not the, a black lion.
Right. Her first thought is Keith.
Yeah, but it's not.
No. So Keith's last word is Allura, and he's saying it in anguish, right?
Mm-hmm.
And her first word is Keith.
Wait a minute. Are you trying to suggest they might like each other?
Yeah, I think it shows that there's a little bit of a connection there.
So what is this thing? This lion is not the black lion. It's actually a rusty looking Voltron lion sized robot lion that Wade has built. Right. And the script calls it a deformed lion. So every time you see a reference to it in the script, that's what they call it. And it also says, it calls Wade's lion a deranged, deformed version of the black lion. But ironically, it's actually the same lion that we saw in the previous story. The one that attacked the spider beast is just rustier and smaller, because that lion was bigger than the other Voltron lions.
And Keith tells us later that he remembers Wade doing experiments on the black lion, and this is one of the results.
Yeah. So the deformed lion attacks the blue lion. We end the scene, and now we're in another passage at Wade's base where black, green, and yellow are, racing down some other passage. We have like a moonquake, I guess you could call it, where there's a tremor that's affecting the whole base. And Pidge is able to see through the magic of lion sensors that the blue and red lions are still moving, but they can't do communications because of the moon shaking, because the moon shaking affects radio. Anyway,
there's always some explanation.
That's right. For Star Trek, it would be a subspace field disruption or something like that. Yeah. But anyway, so what's fun here is Keith says he wants the team to keep a tight formation, and then 3 deformed lions attack them. So there are 3 more of those things. They all look the same, which makes sense. Wade would have mass produced them like he did his own Wade droids that we saw in the previous stories. So yeah, it's fighting time. And and this is where Keith says exactly what you had said before. Hunk says, "What are these things?" Apparently they don't look enough like him to the lion that they had already fought. Keith says, "I've seen them before, leftovers from Wade's experiments on the black lion," which is also kind of funny because we saw his entire time on Tarvos pretty much in the previous story, and there was no obvious sign of those things. Although in one scene, I think he did look into a window and said, what are you doing here, Wade? So maybe that's when he saw them. But yeah, so then we have another moonquake, and a hole opens in the floor, and Black Lion and all 3 of the deformed lions fall into the fissure. Before the deformed lions can pounce, Red Lion jumps into the scene and blasts all 3 of them with its tail laser. And then I think they do a little bit of one-upmanship where Lance says something about having this teamwork thing figured out, and then Keith uses the taser tail, takes out another lion, and then says, "Yeah, me too." Another lion comes in off screen, but it's busted up. And Blue Lion enters the scene, and Allura says, "Just like old times, right?" Which is fun.
So she got a taste of one as well. So you had Lance getting one, Keith getting one, and now Allura getting one.
Yeah, cool stuff. And then what's very interesting is that when the Blue Lion shows up, I look for this stuff because I dabble in 3D graphics myself. I would not pretend to call myself an artist, but I dabble in this stuff. And the Blue Lion shows, this happens with many of the 3D assets in this show from time to time, where when the lions or Voltron or whatever are put into extreme poses, sometimes their individual parts kind of overlap in 3D space. And that can happen because they're simulations of 3D objects. They're not really solid things in a computer. And the blue lion has its neck craned up when Allura is talking, and the lion's head dips downward. So there's this severe angle between the angle of the neck and the angle of the head, and you actually see a portion of the neck protrude through the lion's lower jaw. It doesn't last long, but it's there. And if you look really carefully, sometimes you'll see things like that throughout the show. But anyway, so Allura has said, just like old times, then Wade comes back on the radio and says, oh yeah, you better go find Coran. So Mr. Let's keep in tight formation, Keith says, we better split up. And so they do.
Okay.
And now, oh no, not the catacombs yet, Mark. I'm sorry. We're at King Alfor's tomb.
Oh, but
Yeah.
that's still down there.
It is down there.
It's down there.
It's down under, yes.
Yeah.
Down under the castle. And so Vince walks into this tomb. Now, I just spoiled it by saying it's King Alfor's tomb. I'm sorry. He walks into it.
We know it is.
We know it is. We old timers.
It's like we've been there, you know?
Yes.
So
maybe.
many times.
Yeah. And so Vince walks in and he's kind of talking to himself saying, why me? And then this ghost appears. And it looks very kingly. And it says, because you were born to do it. That's kind of ominous.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there you go. That's King Alfor. Welcome to King Alfor in Voltron Force. So now we go back to the main catacomb area. Mark, we're back in the catacombs for reals.
Good.
And now Coran, they're now running through this straightaway, this large open area underground. And Coran is running at full speed. He puts his arms behind him like he's, like you see in some martial arts films when people run really, really fast and their arms are, back behind them. He's got them back at horizontally, and missiles fire out of his fingers. That's impressive. And toward Daniel and Larmina. And Larmina says something that's kind of funny. What's that?
I really hate robots. And Daniel says, but we pilot a giant, and she goes, you know what I mean.
Yeah. Although she has had her fill of robots with those Wade robots.
Yeah.
And the lion, the giant Wade lion in the previous story.
And she didn't like simulators either. And she didn't like piloting the robots, the robot lions either. So
man, what does she like?
Yeah.
Her stealthy stalking skills.
She likes kicking butt. That's what she likes doing.
Now we're back at the Tomb of Alfor. Vince he recognizes the ghost immediately as that of King Alfor. And Alfor says something like, there is so much to teach you, much power to unlock, but I fear the danger to the Castle of Lions leaves us little time. And it's very interesting because Alfor's pretty plugged in for a dead guy.
Yeah. Even for an AI, if he was, it's kind of hard to say, there's this guy running around loose in the castle and I know exactly what he's here to do and everything about him. How is that possible?
Yeah. We could almost call him King Exposition.
Yeah.
Yeah. And what's interesting is that in Voltron Legendary Defender, Joaquin Dos Santos and Laura Montgomery mentioned that's why they killed off Alfor, the AI of Alfor in that show, because, by the time the show is over, we know very well that if Alfor had been around, we would have known a heck of a lot more about the plot.
Exactly.
Earlier. Yeah.
And so this one still has the capacity to be able to hold back and say, well, I can't tell you everything.
Yeah. Yeah. So this is supposed to be a ghost. It's described in the script as a ghost. It looks ghostly. It's in a tomb, but its voice has that. It doesn't have that, oh, I'm a king kind of a thing. But here, it almost has like a tinny kind of a sound, like an old telephone or something.
Right.
And what's very interesting is that in the wide shot of this room, when you look down at the casket of Alfor, there are these pipes that radiate out across the floor from underneath the casket out toward the walls, and then they go up the walls, which is really weird. So is this Alfor a ghost?
Mhm.
Is it an AI? Are those power lines or data feeds? What's going on there? Or is Alfor just taking a really long nap in there and there's a hologram of Alfor and he's in there playing Funko Pop Blitz through his fiber internet connection through those wires?
Of a show that hasn't come out for him yet.
That's true. Well, they are in the future, so you know. Yeah, but anyway, I didn't realize until I recently rewatched the show. There's those weird pipes going into the coffin. If we ever talk with a scenic artist from Voltron Force, I would love to ask about that and just
Sure.
see what they were thinking. And so, in this scene, Alfor knows all about Robo Coran, and he reveals to Vince that Vince has been misunderstanding the situation. The robot doesn't have a bomb. The robot
is the bomb.
Yeah. And Vince has this look of shock, like, oh no, the robot isn't carrying one in a lunchbox. It's in its chest. Or so, you know, it's like, why does that matter?
Yeah, exactly. To me, this doesn't change things. They still have to stop him and keep the bomb from going off in the castle to destroy the castle. Whether it's inside of him or it's something he's carrying, it doesn't matter to me.
Yeah. All right. So now we're back to the catacombs where Daniel and Vince are. Robo Coran is now in an even larger chamber. It stops. Its left eye starts to flash, almost like a strobe effect, and it beeps. And Daniel thinks the robot's about to do something that's pretty bad.
Bad. Whatever it is, it's bad. Thanks, Daniel.
Yeah, thanks, Daniel. The script says that the effect of the robot's eye should be that of a countdown/arming sequence, but the eye is just flickering.
Yeah, we don't get that full idea the first time we see it.
So now we cut back to Wade's base, and Blackline runs around a corner, and at the end of the passageway, what does he see? Who does he see?
Coran.
That's right. And so
the real Coran.
Or is he?
It's another robot.
Yeah. Wouldn't that have been better?
Oh, that would have been horrible. If after all that, they were chasing another robot.
Yeah, I mean,
oh my gosh.
Yeah, so back in Voltron Legendary Defender, I hypothesized that maybe Shiro never came back after he was abducted by the Galra.
Yeah.
That even though the original one who came back to Earth might have been a clone, and of course that was never, you know, it's supposed to really have been him.
You just opened up a whole can of worms, didn't you?
But
you had to bring us back there, didn't you?
Oh, so sorry. But Coran could have been another robot here too. But but he's not. So Keith uses the Lion's comm system and tells the other members of the team that he's found Coran. And Lance basically says, I'm inbound. And Lance says, oh no, I see Coran. I'm already almost there. They argue about who should rescue Coran.
Right.
So we're back to this one-upmanship. Yep. And ultimately, the Lions run into the chamber, the end of this passageway at the same time as a deformed lion approaches, and they tear it in half.
Because they're both so eager to get to Coran first.
Yes. We have another moonquake, and the room basically starts to collapse on them, on the Lions and Coran. That is the end of Act 2. And so now we're into Act 3, the third and final act. We're back at Wade's base, back in the chamber where we were, and the Black and Red Lions have very, very nicely shielded Coran from the debris. Keith and Lance are out of the Lions, and they free Coran from all the tethers and all that had held him there.
Mm-hmm.
And Coran says something like, "I was never the main objective. You should have left me here."
Right. Yeah. But that wouldn't have been good for Coran.
No. So then Keith and Lance argue some more, and then they finally stop when another moonquake happens.
But the base is falling apart. We shouldn't really be fighting over this right now.
Yes. Okay, so back to the castle, the catacombs. Coran's right eye is now showing these weird sequence of weird symbols. Again, not obvious to me that it's a countdown, but it's alien numbers, so whatever. The robot then, goes full on Neo from the Matrix, jumps up in the air, and then slams back down on the ground, leaving a little crater.
Mm-hmm.
Then the robot just kind of stretches out its arms, and its skin flies off,
Mm-hmm.
and its clothing flies off, and it's a full-on robot.
Because the clothing would have gotten in the way of the explosion.
That's true.
You don't want to muffle the explosion with clothes.
Yeah, maybe it was flame retardant.
Yeah.
But so it's funny that everything comes off except the skin, which was still on the robot's head. So you still have this half Coran face, and
Mhm.
everything else is robotic. But I do think that the visuals, there's this weird kind of a electrical effect as everything flies off, which looks really cool. Just visually, it's pretty neat. And so at this point, Larmina realizes, and she literally says it, and the look on her face is funny. She says, "The robot is the bomb," and it almost like, I almost want to hear somebody say, "The robot is the bomb." It uses lasers and missiles, and the cadets are trying to get close to do something to disable it, but they can't even get close. So now we're back to the tomb, and Alfor basically says, "I can't answer all your questions, but you have a journey, and I can show you the path." And he points at some gizmo off camera, off screen.
Yep. It's an ancient lion relic, and it's about the shape of a disc.
About the size of what? The key?
Yeah, like a key to the Voltron.
It's a little unclear where exactly that thing was in that room, but
Mhm.
whatever. Vince gets it. He leaves. That's the important thing.
Right.
He's got something to help him on his way. We're back at Wade's base. Tarvos is still moonquaking. Keith and Lance are arguing about who's the better rescue.
So now they both want to sacrifice themselves for the team, and now they're arguing over that.
Yeah, and I just love this. They get so petty. Lance is like, "My tail weapon fires faster." Keith says, "Mine's got more power."
Yeah.
It's like, yeah. Anyway, it's like they're comparing. Yeah, and I'm not going to go there.
Comparing the size of our tails.
Exactly. So what breaks up the argument? The debris around them is frozen solid all of a sudden.
Yep.
And it's clearly the freeze ray of the Blue Lion. And
they used Hunk's tail to get through the ice.
So now we're back in the corridors, and the lions are running through the corridors. And I should point out that all these corridors throughout the base have nothing to establish that these are ginormous corridors.
Uh-huh. Big enough for robot lions.
Yes, and in some of the shots, it makes the lions look almost like they're normal-sized cats running in a hallway, like at your house or something.
Yep.
It really would have been nice if they'd had some catwalks or railings or little doors or something, but they don't. Anyway, so they're running along. There are a lot more death traps, and Wade is still taunting them and being all, "I'm better than you" kind of thing. There's a whole bunch of action that happens here.
It's basically showing the power of the tails, because they keep on using those tail powers all throughout this whole episode.
Basically, 4 lions leap out of the base through a hole in the wall. Black Lion tries to leap through, but then some debris falls, knocks it backward, and then it falls into a hole. The visuals here are a little patchy,
a little
to
confusing.
Yeah. So presumably the Black Lion has fallen into another lower chamber on the base, but the yellow lion flips around, extends its tail. The end of it changes in some way.
Mm-hmm.
The tail, then we see a tight close-up of the tail coming down, the Black Lion biting it, and that end part of the tail is now gone in this one shot. There's a little knob there, and the Black Lion is holding it, and then the background is a star field. So it's like you were inside the base, you fell down through a hole into the base, but somehow behind you, maybe it's wallpaper. They grab the tail, and the yellow lion yanks the Black Lion out of the base. They get to a safe distance.
And then all of a sudden it implodes.
Yeah. And so the moon implodes in the background. The 5 lions are safe. They think about how good a time they had with the team bonding. And then Coran says, he asks the Force how they knew he was there. And Allura, she gets this look in her eye like, "Oh yeah, we better get back to the castle." Yeah. So real quick trivia about Tarvos. It is a real moon. It's a moon of Saturn. Its radius is a mere 7.5 kilometers or 4.7 miles. It's a very small moon. Its gravity is about 0.03% of Earth's gravity. So let's move on.
All right.
Back to the catacombs again. So the robots using lasers and missiles and a force field even to keep Daniel and Larmina from getting close. And then Vince walks in and he has a revelation. He understands what that voice was telling him.
Only you can save them.
Yes. So somehow this inspires him to take this relic, put it in the circular key port on his Voltcom. The Voltcom in his arm starts glowing. He holds out his arm, Yoda style, and stone blocks are glowing blue with lion power. They come out from the surrounding walls and build a sort of ziggurat or a cocoon around Robo-Coran.
It was like Jenga. He knew exactly what stones to pull out of the wall without the wall falling down.
So then the robot blows up.
Yeah, inside the rocks.
Yes, and so this shell, which is not much larger than the robot itself, seemingly shields the chamber and the castle from the effects of the bomb, except that the impact from some of the blocks seems to blow a hole in a nearby wall.
Yep.
And Larmina has never seen that. She says, "I've never seen that door or that room before."
There was no door ever.
Yeah,
it's just a hole in the wall.
Yeah, literally a hole in the wall.
But it's a secret room still.
Yes. We might joke, wow, these blocks really weren't that much to absorb a blast that would have taken out the blocks and the castle. But I actually started thinking about this a little bit. They were glowing blue.
Yeah, which means there was a power holding them there.
Yeah.
Which means when the blast happened, it was because the power was holding those blocks in there.
Yes.
That it actually kept the explosion from going on anywhere else.
Vince used, the same power that he used in the previous story to recharge Voltron and the Blazing Sword. He's using to supercharge these blocks, which are connected to the Castle of Lions, and that's what saved the castle.
Yep.
And so now we're at the control room of the Castle of Lions. A little bit of time has passed. The Voltron Force and Coran, the real Coran, they run in through a door, and they're calling out for the cadets.
So Daniel says, "So how did your day go?" He throws the head of Robo-Coran at their feet, and Coran looks at it, and he's like, "Wow, that's unsettling." And then he looks up and he goes, I guess we haven't been formally introduced. I'm Coran." And then, of course, Vince says, "Oh, it's so nice to meet the you."
That's funny. And then we have one last scene. We see the hole in the wall that the cadets are going to call the lair. What is sitting on top?
We see the piece of paper that he drew the logo of the lair on. So yeah. Daniel's drawing is sitting on top of the rubble.
Yep, they have claimed their space.
Yep.
So and we're done.
Here's something though.
What's that?
Looking back on all the episodes that have happened, right?
Uh-huh.
I really thought the very next episode we were going to get into the lair.
That's
true. We're going to start developing the lair. I thought this was going to be a continuous thing every episode after that. No. It's a while before we even mention the lair again.
Yeah, it does happen.
I wanted to mention that.
Yeah, they take a joyride in the next episode.
Yeah, don't get any ideas that we're going back to the lair right away.
Yeah.
It ain't happening.
Yeah, we love our secret space. Let's stay away from it for a while.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So what did you think of this episode overall?
Oh, well, other than the fact that, we're trying to figure out who's the real Coran. Will the real Coran please stand up? I was trying to figure out, at the end of the last episode, Coran had gotten away from Wade.
Yeah.
And as he was leaving, we just saw Wade's hand barely move, which meant he's still alive.
Right.
But you'd think Coran would be able to get away from all that, right? And
yeah.
And actually, when you see him crash landing the fractal and everything, it's, to me, that's what would have happened. He would have grabbed a fractal and would have gone back to Ares.
Yeah. So
But-
should they get a shot at him?
But why would he have been crash landing is what, what I'm thinking. And then,
Yeah.
I mean, the whole thing doesn't make sense to me that he got recaptured by Wade again when Wade wasn't able to even go after him.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you'd think Wade would have spent, a day lying in a bed thinking, what the heck just happened? But no, he somehow recaptures Coran. I agree.
So why would you want that guy as your royal advisor if he easily gets captured just like that?
Yeah. Maybe they don't take his advice about, avoiding being abducted.
No, not
Yeah.
my royal advisor.
Yeah. So there are definitely plot holes. But there are some things that get established in this episode,
Yes.
which there is follow through on. We learn more about Vince having some kind of a destiny that he was born into.
Yes.
He has some kind of a journey that will unfold.
We got to see his Voltcom work for the first time.
Yes, and that's a pretty nifty power. This
Yeah.
Whatever he's doing with the lion power. We meet King Alfor. We see the beginning of a pattern that we'll see in a lot of other episodes where the pilots are doing one thing and the cadets are doing something else, and then they come back together at the end.
And the
Wade-
beginnings of their secret lair, which we
Yes.
won't mention again for a while.
That's right. So, we have the groundwork, some additional groundwork for some things that will pay off later. But yeah, the plot is a little, yeah,
Oh, and don't forget the character development between Keith and Lance.
that's true. That's true. And of course, the look of anguish that this is more than a professional thing when Allure gets taken away.
Yeah.
So there we go. Yeah. So there's that too. And I do like the visuals. Although I do wish that they had added some scale references on the base. That actually bothers me a lot because we have seen human-sized corridors in the previous story on Tarvos. That would have been really nice to have something just to establish the scale.
Yep.
But anyway, that's about it. Anything else about Coran?
No, but I do want to mention that we don't have time for it now, but in our next episode, in our next podcast, we do want to have a little countdown of 10 things that remind us of robots and robots that are acting like they're human, but they're really out to kill us.
Yeah, let's do that. That sounds like a great thing we can lead into our next episode with.
Yes.
Yes, and our next episode that we will be reviewing will be the 5th episode, Joyride to Doom.
Yes. Woohoo.
All right. Woohoo! Where you get to see more Lotor and Mayhawk's fun. So
Right. So we are looking forward to the next episode, which will be episode 5.
that's right. And we have heard from some people who are interested in joining us to help us review some Voltron Force episodes. We need to figure out the logistics so that we can have them join us. And we hope that you guys will join us in the next podcast.
Yeah. And to remind everybody who may be listening to this for the first time, we're only going to be going to episode 5 in our next podcast. So there's still a total of 26 episodes, that we're going to be talking about. So if you would like to join us on one of these episode reviews for Voltron Force, please send us an email at letsvoltronpodcast@gmail.com. And you'll see it right there.
Yes, through the power of editing. Yes.
Yes, letsvoltronpodcast@gmail.com. Send us, maybe there's a particular episode that you would like to take part in, or just any episode.
Yeah, that would be awesome. We look forward to hearing from you.
Thank you very much.
Glad to be of service, Mark.
So thank you for joining us once again on Let's Voltron, the official Voltron podcast. And we look forward to seeing you guys on a future podcast. So we'll see you all next time on
Let's Voltron.
Oh my